Hi and welcome to Think Watercolour. In this demonstration I'm going to be working from this picture of a fairly dilapidated old Asian fishing boat. The picture was downloaded from Unsplash. I'll put a link in the description below. The original picture's portrait format, but I'm going to crop it and just make the sky a little bit more interesting, try and brighten the image up a little bit, but I was just attracted by the colours of the boat, so let's get started. I've already mixed up some colours for the sky. This is cobalt blue and a touch of burnt sienna to create this coolish grey, and I've also got some cobalt blue here. Just add a little bit more water to that. I'm going to wet the paper first in this case, because I want to leave a few patches of dry paper just for some white cloud patches. It's probably hard for you to see on camera where I'm actually putting the water, but all will be revealed shortly. Okay, we'll start with the darker clouds over on this right hand side. Just drop them in. This is a Raphael Soft Aqua number 2 mop that I'm using. As I've said in previous videos, they're lovely brushes to use. They hold a lot of water. Just going to add a bit of blue here. This is going to dry much lighter, so I just want it all to bleed together a little bit, so that we don't have too many hard edges, but just a few with some of the clouds. Drop a little bit of clear water in there. And that should do, I think, for the sky. I'm going to finish the horizon off a little bit. Don't want too many straight edges. I don't mind hard edges, but straight lines in clouds are a no-no for me. Okay, I'm just going to let that dry a little bit, and then while I'm doing that I'll mix up the lightest of the sea colours. So we'll just mix these two together. A little bit more water, and then I'll add some more cobalt blue. Touch more burnt sienna, and I'm going to add a little bit of sap green just to delineate the sea from the sky. Again, this should dry much lighter, so because I want the horizon to disappear a little bit, I'm going to bleed these together, but try and allow for some white of the paper for some waveforms in the distance. Leave a few gaps of white clear paper. should do for the first wash of the sea. And in the foreground here, this is very, very shallow, only a couple of inches deep, if that, of seawater on the sand where the boat's resting on the beach. So this area is going to be a big shadow area later, so for the moment I'm going to leave that as it is. Just mix up some same mix but darker. So cobalt blue, raw sienna, burnt sienna, more cobalt blue, and some sap green, more blue I think, it's better. I think we can go a little bit darker with the blue. Okay, so just going to blend this in. The bottom of the boat here is quite dark, so I'm going to use the same colour. I will darken that later, but for the moment I just wanted to, just going to paint around that oar, get this shadow in. I don't want a hard edge here or here, so that's why I'm painting wet into wet. And with a damp flat brush, I'm just going to lift out where I've let the dark area bleed into that bit of the sea. I want to try and keep a hard edge on the boat there and just there. I'm just going to soften this edge. I don't want this to be hard just yet. That needs to blend. Okay. Just tidy up there. Okay, I'm going to let that dry and then come back and work on the boat in more detail, and the sea of course. Okay, so that's pretty dry now, so still a little bit damp in places, but it's fine. I'm just going to put some of the darker areas with a flat brush where I'll just hold the brush at the end, give me a bit more control. There are a few hints of waves. Again, the trick here is not to go overboard. Nearer into shore, there's just a broken line of shadow where the waves are just rippling onto the shore. These aren't really big breakers, there's quite small waves coming in. It's a fairly calm sea. And then on this is the same dark colour that I used here. for these shadow bits. Just wanted the paper to be drier to give me some slightly harder edges. And that should do for that. I'm just going to run a just slightly damp brush along the horizon, just to make it a little bit clearer. I'm just going to, again with a damp brush, just feather some of these darker areas a little bit. A little bit harsh on the edges. Just want to soften the edges a little bit. Maybe there, take that out a little bit. It's just a suggestion of the sea coming in, really. I'm fairly happy with the tonal values. Now I can really concentrate on this, the boat and the darker areas, and the darkest shadow, which is right underneath the boat here. So I'm just going to clean the palette down and mix some colour for the boat. Prefer to have a clean palette when I'm mixing brighter colours. The boat's quite a distinctive turquoisey, greeny blue colour, so I will use an Skoda number 8 for that. Gives me these are Skoda La Perla brushes. They hold a pretty good point, but they also hold a fair amount of water, so they're quite good for putting detail work in. So I'll use a small mop to mix the paint up. It'll be quicker if I do that. That's better. So this is cobalt teal, and let's clean the brush. I'm going to add some cobalt blue and maybe some cerulean. Trying to get this boat colour the way I want it. That's not far off. That's what attracted me, was the way the boat just stood out from the beach with this bright turquoise colouring. It looks like a pretty well worn boat, to be honest. Much used. Don't do that there. Okay. As the brush is full of paint, I'll actually just green that a bit more. I think that should be fine. Let's get this. This is the lightest colour on the boat, so quite happy to paint it pretty much all over. The back of the boat here is broken away. I'll put a little bit of detail on that, just painting around the oar. Try and keep that white because it's very, very light. The side of the boat is quite dark, so we'll be going over this with darker colour shortly. There's a wooden bench across the front of the boat. So I'll just paint around that because that's not painted. It's natural wood colour, so try and keep that clear. Okay. I'm going to add some neutral tint to this mix to help darken it. Again, I want it to be quite dark here. I'm happy for it to bleed a little bit because it's a rather careworn part of the boat, bottom of the hull. And there's I'm going to swap to the watercolour brush. Some of the shadow detail in. Don't mind if these shadows bleed a little bit because they're not that well defined anyway. I'm going to go much darker with this shadow on this side of the boat shortly. Okay, so while that was drying, I've mixed up some, this is ultramarine blue and some Payne's grey, just to create a really dark shadow area. Now that the boat's dry, I can drop this in and really darken this foreground part of the boat. I can afford to have harder edges now on details of the boat. I'll come back to that shortly. Let's really get this shadow in here. Going to add some pretty neat paint underneath the boat here, where it's the darkest, while it's still wet. Same here. Got the bottom of the boat wrong, that's fine, that's good. Okay. Put some of the structural part of the boat in, ribs, darkening the shadow on the inside of the boat on that side. Okay, well, this is still wet. I'm just going to with some clear water just feather and soften the edge of this shadow. That's dried too much. I'm going to have to add some more pigment there. You have to be careful when you're doing this, because if you let it get damp and then you just put water in, you end up with the dreaded cauliflower or rumback, whichever you want to call it. Just with that. A little bit more pigment in this area while it's still damp. Get away with that. Just a hint of some ripples. Too dark. Better. Going to dampen this and feather it a little bit. It's a bit too sharp, hard edged. Just soften that slightly with some damp water. Okay. I'm going to let that dry. Then I'm going to darken the green of the boat. It's a little bit too light, but I want it to dry first, so I'll just leave it for a few minutes and then we'll come back. Okay, that's dry now, so I'm going to just go over the green part of the boat and darken it, and just bring it up to the tonal value that it should be. It's a bit light at the moment. Can't guarantee to get it right first time every time, so that's life, that's watercolours. And into that I'm just going to drop in some areas of cerulean blue onto the green, just so that it doesn't look too neat, because it is very patchy, the colour on this boat. Some parts are very blue, some parts are more green. That's fine. Just going to, with a, what number is this? Number 2 watercolour. Just using this same dark, just indicate a few more ripples of the lying water around the boat. Just darken some parts of where the waves are breaking, running onto the shore. Just a little bit darker shadow, because they're closer to us and the shadow would be stronger. These ones back here are further away, so we can afford to be a little bit lighter. Just using the same mix I used for the boat, really, just adding a little bit of darkness to it, just for these waves when they're breaking near the shore. A bit more colour visible. The further away they are, the lighter and greyer they look. Just a few hints. It's fine. Okay, I'm just going to put some harder edge detail on parts of the boat. Same with the ribs, a little bit more. At the end of the day, it's a wreck of a boat, so there aren't going to be too many nice clean lines. Okay, with some pretty much neat Payne's grey, it's going to just indicate a few lines of the planking on the boat, the back. Some down the side. Just around where that bit's broken. While I'm letting the boat dry a little bit, finish off these breaking waves near us with a little bit of neat, straight out of the tube white gouache. I don't advocate doing too much of this because you can go overboard and generally ruin the look of a painting, but because this is in the foreground, I just wanted to bring back some of the white that I lost, especially with these waves that are nearer to us. As I said before, they're not huge waves, they're just small waves breaking on a very shallow shore. And in this area there are patches of reflections of white in the water. A little bit of dry brush. Just going to get a number 1 rigger. Or is it a number 0? No, it's a number 1. And just get some gouache on that. Try and do what I was trying to do earlier, which is to paint a squiggly ripple. That's better. Comme ça. Just where the light's hitting. Just take that out. There's some more over here. A few little dots of white where the water's foamed up a little bit. Seem to have lost that. That's better. So I'm not a great advocate of using gouache, but it needs must sometimes. It can just bring the painting out. Okay. I'm just going to leave that for a few minutes to dry fully because I want to paint the bench, the planking for the bench and the detail for the oars, and put a few more details in, especially this area where the boat's been damaged at the back. So I'll just leave that to dry for a few minutes and then I'll come back. While that's been drying, I have mixed up some fairly neat raw sienna for the lightest part of the oar handle. and the bits of boat structure that are sticking up. And the bench. There's a couple I've missed. I think these are floats or buoys attached to this piece of wood. Okay. Just grab some Windsor red, because there's a little bit of red up here. There's also yellow. Such a fairly strong blue mix straight from the tube. Creates a little bit of a focal point, just adding those buoys. It's adding these darks that make the colour, the painting come alive a little bit. Just add a little bit more yellow there. Okay. Detail. Yeah, so just there's a bit of rope holding that oar to that upright there, so we'll just darken these front, give them a little bit more definition. These dark touches, as I said before, that add the dimension to the painting, bring it together. And I think we're done. A boat on the seashore. I hope this was informative, not too boring, and I hope you found it interesting, if nothing else. If you like the video, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and even better, if you give it a like. It always helps with YouTube to get likes. And thanks again for watching.